that? Should I make it bigger? Okay. All right. So I'm going to get right into what App Inventor is, and just describe a little bit in the following slides how it works and why it's cool. So App Inventor is really aimed towards educational resources, students, teachers. Somehow I got lucky and got in. Maybe I said I was a student. I don't remember. But I recommend putting that if you want to try it out. So the educational perspective that motivated App Inventor holds that programming can be a vehicle for engaging powerful ideas through active learning, and as such, it is a part of an ongoing movement in computers and education that began with the work of Seymour Papert and the MIT Local Group in the 1960s. It uses OpenBlock's Java library and I believe it's Kawa language framework. And these OpenBlocks was developed by somebody at MIT, one of their labs, and I'm not 100% sure on where Kawa came from. A lot of this information is right off the App Inventor's website on the About page, which I think you only have access to unless you have, that's the only page you can really get to unless you have an account. So to use App Inventor, you don't have to be a developer. I think maybe that's why I like it, because I've been out of coding for years, since college. It's because instead of writing code, you visually design the way you want your app to look, and then you use blocks through the Java blocks, the OpenBlocks library, to connect everything up and make your actions and your commands function. It's invite only, and I'll show a link that I created and a QR code if you're so inclined to snap that, where you can sign up for it, hopefully get access to it. It's web-based, so I actually designed a couple of my apps on my home computer, and I'm actually opening them up here. I'll be demoing on my laptop, which is kind of cool. So you can do it anywhere. There's some caveats to that if you want it hooked up directly to your phone, which a lot of headaches with that, and I'll get into those. And as I said, it seems to be aimed at students, educators, etc. So how to get Android App Inventor. You can sign up. I got a quick little bit.ly link if you guys want to write it down, or like I said, you can snap the picture. It's bit.ly/mobilescai for Mobile Sync Cloud App Inventor. Excuse me. There's no rhyme or reason how and who people get selected, other than you sign up for it. And like I said before, I think I said I was a student, but I mean, I'm always constantly learning, so I guess I lied too bad. I leave it sit there. I say it again. I can always pull it up at the end if you want to snap a. Anybody familiar with QR codes? Cool. I'm obsessed with them. I think I have one of my personal business cards on the back. So why App Inventor? There I go saying So it's a great tool for mocking up an idea. Because you design it with the GUI itself. And it's also a good way to get a minimum viable product, and we're really starting to preach that at W3I, out the door, and there's an asterisk there, and I'll get to that in the next slide. Some colleges are using it in 100-level courses, and some high schools are using it. I wish this was around when I was in high school and in college, and had a teacher that was really into it, and I think it would have got me on the right foot. Granted, Android wasn't out then, but we can discuss that later. It's just a flat-out great way to get your feet wet. You can create personal apps for you to consume yourself, and I'll get into that a little bit, why it's for personal consumption right now. You can share it with other App Inventor users, and I'll actually be demoing one of my coworkers' apps that he got hooked on and added a bunch of functionality to. It's actually a game. And you can also send packages. You can package it and send it to your computer, and then I believe you can distribute it. I'm not 100% sure on that. I haven't tested that. So some of the caveats. Google won't allow apps that are created with App Inventor into the Android market. Now, if you Google hard enough, you'll find some trickery and hackery to accomplish that. I haven't tested that yet. I'm kind of interested in it. One thing, the app icon, there's no setting in App Inventor to change that. And I think that's part of the reasoning behind you can't put it in. It's one of those hindrances that they've built in. And excuse me. Like I said, I haven't tested the export of an APK package to a non-App Inventor user. I'd be more than willing to send one to somebody in here if you have an Android device to see if it works. And the app is somewhat limited in what you can do, the App Inventor environment. There's some functionality with phones that you can't control as well as you can with native programming. And obviously you can do more with native code. So some of the interesting tidbits of getting started and just flat out tips. I was extremely frustrated when I first got access to it because it was a pain in the butt to get my phone to communicate, etc. So first off, you need App Inventor to be installed. That's a no-brainer. Once you get access to the website, you have access to the installer and the App Inventor tools, which I'll demo that too. You also need the Android SDK file installed, and that's explicitly for the ADB, which is the Android Debug Bridge, and that's what's used to communicate communicate with your phone when you hook it up via USB. And it also communicates to the emulator, which I'll be using tonight because you all can't see my phone in my hand. My initial frustration with this whole process is with getting the ADB to actually communicate with my phone. And I'll get to it now. I have it in a different slide. But anybody use TeamViewer at all personally at home? It's a remote support app. That uses the exact same port ADB uses. And ADB complains every time you use it. So you have to close TeamViewer. So that's kind of a tip. If you use it, nobody does, so you won't run into that. So you won't be angry on the scale of 1 to 10 of 10 like I was. Proper drivers for your phone. This is another instance where I was kind of upset. Google your phone device. Mine was a Droid X. You get it off Motorola's website and install it. You want to be sure to select, who is an Android user here? Right. Each Android device is somewhat different the way they connect up. When I connect my Droid X to my computer, I get 4 choices: charge only, Windows Sync, USB mass storage. Can't think of the 4th one though. Anybody have an idea? Android users? I don't know. Anyways, there's 4 of them. So, with the Droid X specifically, it needs to be on charge only mode and it will not work and you will get frustrated. Any other models, just Google it. There's a Google group called the App Inventor Coffee Shop where there's a lot of tips, and that's how I got through some of my initial issues I had with App Inventor. And here's where I said shut off TeamViewer if you even use TeamViewer. So nobody does, I'll skip that. So I'm going to get right into some demos. I'm going to show the interface and the functionality, a little run through description. I'm going to show a few apps that I wrote based off of some Google tutorials. One from a fellow attendee here, Brad Gokin. And we may build an app together and modify one of mine. Should be kind of fun. So, keep that on here. So initially, when you get access to App Inventor, you'll get access to my project section where you can create projects. We may create one, or we may just use some of these other ones. I'm going to step through a few and show you the interface. And I'll just start with my very first one that I did, which the tutorials are great, and there's even some instructors out there, like college instructors that have posted a lot of tutorials, a lot of video tutorials that are really helpful. At least wrap your head around it. So I'm just going to go on to the very first one here that you'll probably chuckle. Oh, I've already modified this, so that's a picture of a cat. So here's the base interface. Now this is where you set up the GUI, your GUI design elements, you label your components with proper naming conventions so you're not confused in the OpenBlocks editor, which I'll get to. This is where you manage your media that you attach to the project, everything. So I'll just go through some of I'll just open up some of these palettes here that you can see. You know, your basic functionality buttons, canvas, checkboxes, checkbox. TinyDB, I have not experimented with that one. I had hoped to for tonight, but I didn't get to it. Media manages a lot of your phone. Media aspects, your image picker, your camera. Animation, ball, and image sprite. I believe Brad's utilizes some of these. Social, you can access your phone's contacts, your phone's email, Pick a phone number, texting, and Twitter integration, which I will demo an app. Sensors, you have access to your GPS, orientation, accelerometer. And unfortunately, I can't demo that without, after I'm done, I can show you a couple of the apps that I'll show here, but I can't emulate accelerometer in the emulator if you want to see them. Screen arrangement, these are mainly used for orientation of your objects on in your GUI. Other stuff, activity starter, barcode scanner, notifier, speech recognizer, which I tried really hard to get text-to-speech to work for tonight. Didn't get that one. There's a not ready for prime time. So one thing I didn't mention is this is a Google Labs project. And if you're familiar with Google Labs, it's one of those things where they can just shut the switch off at any point in time and it's gone. But there's people working on it within the App Inventor team at Google. And I'm quite certain that they're receiving input from the educational users that use it. They're giving feedback saying, I wish you could do this, I wish you could do that. And I think these not ready for prime times will eventually move up into rock solid, ready to roll functionality. Game client, I mean, there's all kinds of Bluetooth client, Bluetooth server, tiny WebDB, and voting, whatever that is. Voting component enables users to vote on a question by communicating with a web service to retrieve a ballot and later sending back to users' votes. Old stuff, I've never seen anything in there. So they must go ready for prime time right into there. Over on the right is where you interact with the features. So you can see as I click on the objects, it highlights the object over here, and then you have your properties on the object. So for instance, this is a button. You can enable it, you can set the alignment, you can set the background image, and this you can either add right from here or add media, secondary option here. Set the background color, font size, font typeface, big selection there. You can set the button text. In this app I didn't have text on it because it's a picture of a cat. You can set the width, field apparent, certain pixel size, or automatic. And there's also a lot of these, the media palette options, and like accelerometer and social, they're non-visible components, but they do have some configurable features. Like for instance, this one does a cat meowing for 500 milliseconds, I believe. Here's your accelerometer, one of the properties on. So once you get done designing, and one of the real good benefits of App Inventor, if you connect it to your phone or the emulator, which I hope is still running, is that when you drag something on here, let me just open it up. So this is the open Java blocks editor. Fortunately, it's Java. I'm not a big fan of Java, but so this is, I'll classify it as the back end of the app. This is where you set up all the objects, etc. I'm going to connect it to my emulator here quick. Is that tough to see? Way back. Okay, it's coming up. Here's the Pet the Kitty application. So this is the emulator. You can actually, if I had my phone hooked up, this would be exactly what it is on my phone as it is right here. And the nice thing about it is, I'm going to keep this up. Say I want to drag another button. I open up the emulator. Awesome. See the button? Instantly shows on there. It'll do the same on your phone. So you can mess around with, hey, there it's hiding. There's that better in the back. All right. So that's one of the benefits to. That's one of the benefits to this live GUI. So I can sit here and I can make it the text right align, and it'll show up on my phone or in the emulator. Set that back. So you can see how that's beneficial, where you can actually try it and see it right away. You can delete it off. You can add it back in, add something else, etc. There it disappeared. It's kind of nice to be able to see that. Hopefully I don't know if this is going to actually play sound. So I cut the kitty. Now, with that accelerometer, if I shook my phone, it would purr, because the vibrator would vibrate, and it would keep meowing. A lot of the demos are kind of goofy like that. Any questions so far? I've kind of throttled through it. No questions? Okay. I'm going to open up another project. I think I'll jump right in. No, I'm jumping around. I'm going to go back into the block editor. So this is the heart and soul of the app. The other one I showed you was the GUI to design the orientation of what you want. This is where you can see the definitions. And I mentioned, there's no coding whatsoever when you use this, and it's because of these Java blocks that have built-in functions. You got your definitions. I'll show you the my blocks in a second. You have text actions. You have.
You zoom in.
Oh, yeah. So you have these text actions. Is that better?
Yeah.
And it's as simple as dragging one on and then attaching functionality to it. So that'd be fun. You have list functions. You can call these things. And I'll demo some of these, not specifically lists. I don't think I do. There's math operators. And you can get the general idea. It's like building a puzzle. You put in what you want to compare to another object within, like a button click, for instance. Logic operators. You have control operators. This is your, excuse me, your if-else statements, your loops, etc. And you have colors, which I will show that as well. So the My Block section is what ties into the GUI setup on the initial screens that I showed you. So you notice I have the accelerometer on one of the non-shown objects. And these are all the functionalities that I can tie into with that. And I'll show you that on the right over here. My button one, I didn't name these as specific because it's such a simple app. But you have when the button's clicked, when the button gets focused, when it loses focus. You can set all these different features on the button itself, which is kind of fun. Label, my label on there that, I think that's what it says, Pet the Kitty, I believe. The screen is the overall, the main holder for the app itself. I didn't title that. And then there's the sound. Keep wanting to scroll. Play the sound, pause the sound, etc. So this is all it takes to make that cat app function. You have the button click, so when the button one is clicked, it's going to play the sound and it's going to vibrate for 500 milliseconds. So that's the purring. And when I shake the phone is when it's going to play the sound. I guess it doesn't purr, but it would be as easy as
They both say sound one play, so is it playing the same sound?
Yeah, it's going to play the meow, because that's the only sound that's set on the sound object that I set. Yeah. Good question. So just by dragging this block, you just see how it snapped. I probably can't hear that. Hear the click? Just like building a puzzle.
So in that case, will you play first and then vibrate, or will it simultaneously?
So right now it would play and then run the vibrate. And it's so quick that you really can't tell the sequence. Now if I put like a weight on the play or something, which I can't in this instance here, you could do that. And I want to add a number. Another nice feature is you can just, there it is. You can bring up, and these were the basic block editors that I showed on the left over here, the built-in definitions. So I can just left click, and I can do, let's see, number, and I can set this to 500. And then I just added a vibrate feature to the accelerometer sensor. Now, I know there's a number of you in here that have done this just in native code with various other functionality. You can see how, first off, easy it is. It might be tedious, confusing, but for somebody to start out, it's a really good option just to see how things work. Where it makes sense that when the accelerometer senses shaking, it's going to play the sound, vibrate for 500 milliseconds. Does that make sense to you hardcore developers?
Does it handle like tilts and stuff?
Yep. Yeah, so let's go in my accelerometer setting, and I can set up the axes. So for instance, you can make an app, and there are apps out there already, where if your phone was oriented like this, it could be a service app. So you get into a meeting, you lay your phone down, it will do nothing but vibrate. You know what I mean? You can build in functionality to excuse me, just flat out silence it. So, and one of the nice things is I think you should be able to set up, I know you can, set up a label and have it show what all your axes are while your phone's plugged in, so you can actually see some values. Okay, so I'm interested in this value, and if I don't know what that is off the top of my head, I can have my phone plugged in and see the value show up on my app right on my screen, or the emulate on my screen on my phone. Yeah, I don't think it's going to show up. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good question. Any questions about this simple little annoying app?
Does that actually have some type of IntelliSense built into it? When you type it, can you just type in something right there? Without clicking?
Oh. Is it IntelliSense? Look at that. See, that's why I like it. Oh, I didn't even know that. Oh, that's nice. That's Brad. And that's why I'll show you his app. So this is my cute little thing. I'll show you his.
Can you nest conditions?
Yep. Yep. And I will show a specific example on Brad's app. Any other questions on this simple little interface? I'm going to get out of this so you can see it a little bit better.
Where can I get that APK?
From me.
How much is it?
For you, $2.99. When I'm done presenting, I can email it to you. This is one now. Do you want the cat one now? Are you asking me how to get one out of here? Is that your question?
No.
Oh.
Well, yes. Yeah, I guess.
Okay, I will show that.
It would be helpful to see.
So, say this app was ready to go to market or Mark's phone. I can go right here, I can package it. Now, if Mark was an App Inventor user, I could show a barcode and send Mark the barcode, and he could snap it with his QR code reader and get the link for it and download the APK file. If he was able to log in with his App Inventor login credentials on his phone. And I know Brad and I tested it when I had access before he did. I sent him it when he was an App Inventor user and he couldn't use the APK file. It would do nothing for him. I can download to this computer and it's going to package it. I think it gives me an option where it's at. Or I could actually send it to my phone if it was connected. But I can send it to the emulator, which you had already, excuse me, you had already seen. So I'm going to package it quick. Do you want Pet the Kitty, Mark?
Eventually.
Okay. All right. Good. So in theory, the APK file would be, I'd be able to save it. Awesome. That used to work on my home computer, it works great. Excuse me. All right, so I'm going to open up, we'll go to Brad's app, or open up Chrome with all my tabs. Okay. Save my Pet the Kitty app. So this is an example of somebody taking one of the tutorials and then taking it to an entirely new level of customization. I actually should have imported the standard app. So as you can see, it's quite the app. And I'll demo it in a second. I'll film visually at it. So you can see all the objects that he has in here. He's actually using one of the image sprites, which is a face of a friend of his. And here's all his media. Kind of gives away a little bit of the cute sounds in it. So I'm going to open up the blocks editor. And I'll zoom in on this one as well. You'll see why I can't to show you the depth of which he took the app. A little more than my cat meowing. Somebody asked about nested conditions. Okay. Pretty sure he has a number of nested ones in here. Well, first let me show you the complexity of this app. Very colorful. Let's see if I'll get Inventor on here.
Can you see the code that exists?
That's a really good question. I believe since you can actually package the APK file, so how I got this from Brad is he exported it, and I was able to import it. I still have that. It's a good question. What's that? The question was, can you see the code that this generates behind it? I would, excuse me, I would think that that would be a feature because this is driven towards educational uses. So you want to be able to see what's actually generated behind your GUI statements. I'll look into that. What I was going to say is, I think you can explode the APK file and dig into some of the source to do that. But I think you could hover over an item in the blocks editor and see what the code is. It's a good question, though. Let's get zoom in. So, I'll show you some examples of. So here's a. And if I screw something up right, you can tell me exactly what it is. This is the canvas, so when a touch occurs during the game, there is a number of nested ifs in here. You have one large one, two smaller, and two even smaller. Do you want to step through this, Brad, at all, or you forget it? Okay.
I can't read it from back here. I can kind of step through it. So basically, if someone touches the canvas, which is the first object here, and my canvas has a sprite on it, if so, the canvas and the sprite is touched. If the time is still less than 31 seconds, my game is 30 seconds long, I just put a time limit on it, then do basically my two if statements here. So if I actually miss my sprite, and the number is less than 15, so I only get 15 misses on my sprite, then set miss number plus 1, so whatever my global misses is, and there's a global variable for miss count. Increase the count there by 1, and that's again if I'm less than 15. If I'm over 15, then you don't do it. There's a whole nother section, which is game over, and I think that's down below. So yeah, then it calls a function of update misses. The other if statement here is if misses is greater than 15, which is so if it's over 15, then basically the mold timer, which is my game timer up to 30 seconds, is enabled is false. The game canvas is false. So basically everything shuts down and goes to, I think actually down below here somewhere, it actually plays the game over sound and brings up the game over image. Yeah. Pretty much so. I think that's more or less what it's doing, but it calls all, I mean, the way you build it, you build all these global variables that you call throughout all your other app blocks, I guess you would say. Yeah, so right there's some of the definitions, so the global variable definitions that you actually have.
Cool. Well, I'll play the app. So there's a mole mash tutorial, and then he took it to another level, added a bunch of features, and I'll show that quick. If I can get out of it. Questions?
So you're probably going to be careful with the number of variables you're declaring, otherwise you're going around this much of data, jump back and forth.
The big thing I ran into is I ran out of space on my place to actually play with different blocks and stuff like that. You only have so much space to actually build your application, and I don't know if that's just a limitation now or what, but I started having to pile things up while I was working on other things, so I started adding things and stuff. It was just a lot of playing. Really what I did one night is once I got invited into the program, I sat down and like Matt said, what I thought was a half hour, 3 hours later, I'm still looking at the screen, I didn't realize it. And another 2 hours later, I had this game that was actually playing. So,
That wasn't very busy.
I don't know trash them.
Just like inside your head block, you count a scope, just like how much collection
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Did you say what the variables are?
No, you don't have to be There's global, and then there's but not all.
Like he's coming in chunks,
How would you do like, it does all
It's a big app.
So like after you get out of bed and you scroll, basically should be out. How would you get there?
He did those 30 backgrounds in the bottom, right? Or more of the bottom.
Yep, more or
Use
less.
a win on that ones?
Yeah. Well, the monster app is running. What do you want to see?
Yeah, forgive me, I'm not numbers.
What do you want to see?
Just a,
Maybe they like misses game overview, so he sets the game over as well as a true, and there's some other stuff underneath.
Oh.
oh, so that's like a block of code.
Yeah.
And then I just attach that up underneath, like I call that when a specific event happens in one of my other ones.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gotcha.
And one thing I didn't mention is, there's a lot of hints when you mouse over things. Like, this is the set of instructions that's done when the procedure's called. There's a lot of little helper tips and stuff. You can also you can add comments to it. You can deactivate it so it's not going to run when you're testing it on your phone. You can watch them so you can see what the value is, kind of like debugging, stuff like that. What's that?
What's a little minus at the bottom?
You can actually shrink it to give you more space in the canvas there that you're working on.
Let's see if
You said you're only in so much space on it.
You only have, pretty much right there what he has in that little upper left-hand corner or right-hand corner there. That's your space that you have to work with.
now, once you build this and you're done messing with it, you can go tuck this up here and la la land in the corner and just keep stacking it.
Where you have it laid out on that canvas, will it be displayed somewhere else on the phone? Or
No, that's in the other section.
It's just
on the
the-
web interface that you should.
I could I could just leave that right there if I wanted to.
So you can shrink those, and add more.
Yep. Yeah, I could shrink it and keep adding.
Yes.
And you still may not.
Well, I'm just a messy user. I don't know what color good is. I like to have everything open so I can figure out what
You're
everything's
gonna
going to
lose
do.
things otherwise.
Yeah.
So that this large block, you can just make it disappear. It's still there. And I think this is a good example of why you want to name your objects appropriately in the when you design the GUI, so you know what you're working with.
So if you start typing, you go to your memory function, everything in here or something.
Like right in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You know, as you start, as you pick your variables and your
Which I just learned that
actions,
today.
you can start typing stuff.
And what happens if you then try to create something new, or is it? What happens if you then try to create something new, or is it go with it?
yeah, it creates a new one. So hopefully it's running.
So actually, the question, can you make like another page, which would be like another canvas?
And then I can switch between canvases
Yeah.
and your app.
Yeah, you build them kind of your job at that.
So like back in your web interface,
Yep.
Yeah, you just
so like have another canvas there that you can like create a new canvas and then jump to it somewhere in the app.
Yeah, what you do then is, yeah, you'd add another canvas and you'd have the one not visible, but when you, within your app, that you're building an app box in there, you would create something or do something or some type of action would make it visible and the other one not visible. So yeah, you could have, yep, yeah, there's a,
But will you get a separate app block? So can you get more than one app block essentially? That's
Okay. It did load Brauchler.
There's no way to have something just using this much space. It's got to be more space available somehow.
yeah.
Could be. So here's Brad's app. You try. So when I miss, it's Homer. You guys hear that? Or is that if I hit him? Yeah, it's if I hit him. So I'll get a bunch of misses. Are you drinking when you wrote this? So, but I would imagine, Brad, that you added a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, really, the tutorial for this was just put the sprite on the screen, moving it around, and I think that was pretty much the way. I don't know how much more in depth it got. I added like the high score, the misses, the timer, everything else in there. Yeah.
Any questions on anything?
I got a question, Heather. How would you, or does it allow you to put events on the phone like they used to be in home school and stuff?
The physical buttons on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. That's a good question.
Is there a way to print that out, but not the graphic?
So like the code behind it?
Basically just like a pseudocode
Pseudocode.
that's in text.
Maybe.
instead of graphical.
I'm not aware of it. And that's one of the things you can probably dig into that Google group and see what I mean, there's people getting all around this stuff. People have put their apps in the Android market despite Google saying it can't happen with some of the hackery and trickery, which I wanted to attempt to do and I still might. Everybody wants a Pet the Kitty app, right? All right, so I'm going to quick show you another app. So I went through a number of the paint tutorials and I got bored with the one that they actually demoed and I added some functionality to it. Let's get that fired up. So essentially, it's a canvas for drawing, and I have some buttons up top that are, think of it as your ink pots when you're drawing, and the buttons on the bottom. Some of the functionality I added was clear, because I didn't want to keep closing the app and reopening it and screwing around with it. And I also didn't want to have a cat's face staring at me the entire time. I wanted to play around with other pictures, which then I actually called the media function for my local media gallery to pick pictures. I'll demo that quick. Here's the blocks. We want that zoomed again. Well, I'll show the app quick with the zoom function. So here's where you get a lot of errors if you were actually connecting your phone or having issues. And you bash your head on your desk like I did a number of times. So here's the app. Excuse me. I'm going to change image, which just opens up my picture gallery. On my phone, it would open up my picture gallery. Awesome. Alright, well, I'll demo the drawing. I was going to draw my own face. So, I can keep picking my colors, and I'll show you the code blocks behind it. I wrote a clear just so I could clear everything out. I didn't write it so it set a default color. I can change dots, so on just a touch event, I can have dots. I can have small dots on touch events. It's hard to see. Oh, it's easy. Small dots, big dots. And then clicking and dragging does the line size, which I believe you can set that. For all you know, you can create another list, you pick what you want, combinations, and clear. So I promise you that this thing will pull up a picture on my phone I could draw on my face. So I'll quick go into the block editor here. So I had some global variables defined. These are the size of the drawing, the dots. So big, small, and dot size. So when you click the red button, it's going to set the paint color for the drawing canvas to be red, blue, green, yellow. I just created a button wipe, which just clears the canvas. Excuse me. Here is the part where if you touch it, it's going to draw the dot size and the circle based on where your finger is on the screen, X and Y. And it's to take that global variable dot and make the dot color. Here is when you drag and drop. This was a little bit more confusing for me, which some of you may not have been, but you have the start and then the previous and the current location. That's how you drag your line and create it. And it just draws a line based on the values as you're drawing your line on the canvas. And you can see here's the two buttons on the bottom that do the dot size changes based on my global variables. One thing I forgot to mention. Any questions on this? Pretty simple. I'm going to go back to the canvas quick because there's one feature I didn't mention, which it reminded me of. So I talked about screen arrangement. So as you drag buttons on here, they left a line all the way down the side. I actually created a horizontal screen arrangement, named it 4 buttons, and then I drug the buttons in, and I set each button to fill parent. So 4 buttons are going to take all the space up equally. And that's just, I did the same for the buttons down here. Interesting one was this last one. Really wish this wasn't a job. You saw how it was not aligned properly. I tried really hard to get that aligned. I could get it aligned, but then my clear was all broken up, goofy, so. Anyways. Any questions? Board? Yep.
So you can't just drag the button and put it exactly at a specific point.
Right. And I believe the reasoning for that is how it renders on your phone. You know, you may have a really small Android phone without a big screen like this that you want to be able to set and fill it up. I'll say you write it for a really small phone, you got a big phone, it's not going to look real nice. So by using the horizontal or the vertical layouts, and you put things in it and you send the fill parent, it's just going to look nice. And that might be the same for the native programming too, I don't know.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Okay. I'm going to open Twitter search app I wrote really quick.
Hey Matt, I might have gone over this, and I can't read the left menu, but are there like built-in functions? I'm assuming there should be built-in functions that basically handle events like if you're in the middle of your application and you get a phone call or things like that.
I'm not sure.
You don't handle that. That would pop over.
I think if
What
you,
does your app do? Does it still state? Does it maintain state, or what happens to it? Because I know there's special functions that we write in iOS to handle all that.
Yeah.
Basically.
So if you have like a long audio clip playing and you get a phone call, it'll keep playing or whatever.
You need to handle that. That's why you have special functions that you can have to. You need to take care of those situations. But it's application for application. So I was just wondering if this thing has, or even if Android just has something like that.
Or should it just be paused?
Don't.
would it be an activity?
I don't
Would
think
it
they
just-
do right now, or it's very limited.
You can set functions to pause.
Well, maybe there's all that stuff, but this
In
stuff
this
is
thing.
different.
I don't think they do right now on this.
That's one caveat that they
One
put
of their,
in.
yeah, like one of their bugs, like with even their demo apps, like their kitty app that you showed there. If you don't exit out of the app, you put the phone in your pocket as you're walking around, it would sit there and yell, it's just for So I don't think there is anything built in there yet. I would assume that they would add it eventually, but
And you can handle that by setting your orientation on the accelerometer that's vertical. And you can set the waiver on it, or maybe not meow, but. Did I answer your question? I know maybe not, but.
Yeah, I guess the answer was that you don't have built-in functions to handle.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, you know, in the flat out built-in definitions, you just have the, you know, classic operators. I know there are a lot of features people are asking for to get some experience with. One thing that I've kind of gathered by using this, and I'll get to that in the slide, which I'm running out of time, but doing this makes me want to go and learn the native code, because it's intriguing to me what I can accomplish here, and it just makes sense. Of course, I do have some background in coding, so I kind of understand the functionality, but it makes me want to go and try and utilize some of those more advanced features. And I think that was the goal of App Inventor from the start.
Yeah, it's called a gateway drug.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's a big one.
And I guess back to some of my other slides, you can kind of see how you can quickly build something and see if it's something you want to do. You can test it on your phone. You can hand it to a bunch of coworkers at the APK file. You need to test that yet before I say that aloud next time. Or if there's other App Inventor users, they can all share the links and try them out in the apps. So this is just a quick example of Twitter integration, which I was blown away by how easy it was. And I don't know, I was talking to somebody at work today about it, and they had asked if I had to mess with OAuth or all that other stuff. I think they may be in here, I don't remember who it was, but it came down to just dragging on this Twitter component.
I'd like to have that.
That would be sweet.
What, this here, just to set it up.
Yeah.
And I just have my buttons text box. I have a hidden label here, which I'll show what that does. Let's go back to the block center to quick and run through it. So on the button click, I want to call my search Twitter function, which is built in.
Please.
What's that?
Zoom?
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So on search, on the click of the button, oh, got locked up. I'm going to call my Twitter component, which has a built-in search Twitter function. All I had to do, snap a query on, which is that text box on the front on the app, and I'll demo it. You just type it in, and the .text element of it, or whatever you want to call it in your guys' native coding. So when that returns a search query, so when my Twitter component returns successful, I want to have the search results saved in this variable. So for each item in this search results, I want to step through. Now I added this after the fact because the formatting was really, really ugly. It would go out and get the search string that I did and just mash them all together in a label. There was no rhyme or reason. You couldn't differentiate different tweets. I could because I searched on myself. So you got for each variable item, you want to set the global variable, which did I not have one on here? Okay, it's La La Land, whatever it's going to be. It might be local to this, I don't know. I thought I had one. Anyways,
Might not be your workspace right there.
could be. So set the global variable to, and I'm doing a big join on the global variable. I'm joining it to this zoom in program. There we go. I'm joining to the global variable another variable of, so one item that it returns in the search results, I'm joining 2 new line characters to the end of it, and that's just some editing for when I run the app. And you want to put it back in the list, the search results. And then after each item, it's going to write them out and do the text of the global variable, and this is the label that I showed that was hidden. Here's some other feature, just because I want to keep testing it, so I just wrote a little button click that cleared it. So the label search text, I set it to 0 text string. The search box, the search string, I set it to clear. What that does is it clears it out and puts my text box back in, which says what do you want to search for. My label search, I set it back to white. You'll see what I do in the app. I don't think I broke that today. And you set the global variable back to an empty text string for the next cycle through of the search. So let me get, I think I saw it was open. So here it is. Let's do mobile, Saint, cloud, search Twitter. Change the focus. So here it is. Who is your software, by the way? Nice to meet you. Thank you for participating in Twitter. So, this was just a quick demo to screw around with personally. One thing I would like to see is, for instance, this link be clickable, or if I were to click this on the phone itself, it would take me to, say, my local Twitter app on my phone and take me to Mobile St. Cloud's Twitter and maybe follow them, etc. I couldn't figure that part out. It may be that I'm using a label instead of a text box or some other function. But it's just an example of, and for some reason it magically scrolls. It didn't for me when I was working on it. So I can do the clear search, and I can go back in and do me, do what. I could have fixed that. So just an example of how easy it is to tie into Twitter. Granted, this was just a Twitter search. Now there are tutorials out there to actually build your own Twitter client, which ties into your account, you know, send tweets, follow, stuff, follow people.
Does it limit the number of items, the search results that come back? Or are you limiting that?
I'm not limiting it. I'm not sure what's doing it.
But they're limited, right? Or are you just pulling it up?
Search for common FB.
I think it's that almost
Oops. I searched for Matt, and I was clicking multiple times. So this guy, wait, why do I have to keep wearing their gingham alternates?
It makes it post to Facebook if you like.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Is that the end of it?
yeah.
So
I'm not sure where it's limiting it.
Is it Google that's providing the Twitter block?
Yeah. So it's handling all that.
What other blocks?
For,
Twitter block.
for Twitter, there's quite a few of them.
And can you develop your own? It's just Google. They have like an SDK for blocks. Like, so if you wanted to
I don't,
contribute a block to,
I'm not sure on that. That's a good question. You would think they would be, being they're so open in air quotes. Yeah. So I'll quick go into the My Blocks and just show you the Twitter component. Direct message received. It's just built. followers received when you get a new follower. You could actually set this up to set your notification bar in Android to a follower. Timeline received, is authorized, mentions received, search successful. Here's all the calls, authorized, checked authorized, deauthorized, which a lot of us don't know what it means. Send a direct message to a user, here's the message. Kind of cool. Follow a specific user, request direct messages, like you can pull up a list of, request the 20 most recent direct messages. So maybe that other one was limited. Missing it?
Yes.
Did I miss it? Oh, it doesn't say. So there's all the blocks. That answer your question, Jeff?
Yeah.
Some of them at least. So it's kind of neat. Does anybody program for Twitter like natively? Is it a pain in the butt?
Not natively, no. Bit of an action script. Yes, it was.
So if we want, we can. I know it's past 7. If we want, we can screw around with an app, make something quick, or.
I have a couple questions. Can you create another component, say a button, or something else that's visual component?
Say it again.
Just a block. What are you at? You're saying like a visual, like a control.
Like some sort of special button.
That you can reuse or reuse it.
Yeah, something that you can import into your workspace or whatever you want.
It's only GUI stuff, Matt. Can you create, you buttons and labels and whatever? Can you drag a map label that always displays your last tweet?
I don't think so. You mean like save it and import it into the next app I want to mess around with? Not that I'm aware of.
Could you save an incomplete one and then?
Yeah, like a template and keep pulling it up. Yeah, you could do that. Yep. Because I can set a checkpoint. I can save it as a copy. And that's what I did with that paint one. I saved the base tutorial and then I went around in case I broke it, so I didn't have to start over. That's when I added a bunch of functionality to it. Any other questions? I got a couple quick slides yet. We can play around with it if you want, or just hang out and discuss. Awesome. So there are a lot of reactions on the internet to App Inventor. I may have heard some of them personally. I don't remember. That's the cheater way. That is why Android market is a mess. The only true way to develop is to build from the ground up. Great, now even more crazies can get mediocre apps into the market. My favorite one that I actually read somewhere was, here come the soundboard and fart apps.
There's not enough of those.
No, you can never have enough. So my personal thoughts on the App Inventor is, it's a really good tool to learn. And like I said, I'm jumping ahead bullets, I'm just going to keep on going. Some articles I read said that it really encouraged people to go and learn the actual root elements of development for Android, which I think is pretty cool. Personally, that's what this did to me. I did try and code from scratch using, I don't know what I used. It was so frustrating. I think I created a Hello World app, and I was like, I'm done. I'll pay somebody to develop an app for me if I want an app. So I know I'm more excited about it than ever because I use this and I want to move deeper into it. Now, Brad mentioned this, but I routinely spent 30 minutes that I thought in App Inventor, and I was done 4 hours later, and it felt like 30 minutes. Like I went to bed at 1 in the morning after creating a couple apps. So, any other questions? This is my contact info. You can snap it if you want, or I can just give it to you too. I like QR codes. I was gonna have one for the wireless connection. It wouldn't work on my phone, so I didn't put you guys through that. So. Like I said, we can hang out and talk. We can quick build an app if you want to. I know we're past time. Was it boring? Did I say too many times? How many was it, Brad? Did you count?
No, I don't.
Hey Matt, how am I supposed to get your contact info?
Oh, I got a business card for you. Okay, smartphone users that have a QR code reader, snap away. If you get real close, you can read it. Yeah, stare long enough and it pops out.
You have your color on, right?
It might. I'm gonna try it again.
A question, you might have gone over it in the first slide, but where did the blocks concept come from? I mean, is this something that's been around, or like?
Yeah, that came from a project. Did it work?
Yeah, I've used AT&T one.
AT&T works. Let me go in here quick. Can I get in here?
Yeah.
I did slightly mention it. So it uses the Open Blocks Java library, which was developed at MIT for creating visual blocks for programming languages. It was distributed by MIT's Scheller Teacher Education Program. So
So is that, it's like an open source?
Yep.
Anybody can do this?
I believe so. I think they may have gotten special permission to utilize it. I thought it said on here, maybe not. Yeah. They want to thank all the people for making open blocks available and for their help on working on it. I would imagine anybody can screw around with it. Maybe not.
Like someone could write one provider for .NET or something.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know 100% for sure, but interesting. Any other questions?